Imhotep African family, and welcome to Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. And for the purpose of the recording, I am Dr. Nteri Nelson, a Kemetic physicist, a licensed clinician and educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. And so once again, beloveds, we come into this sacred space, this virtual space, this ethereal space that we have been cultivating each week, that we may amplify our vibration and distribute the light. So this is a universalizing resonant vibrational field in which we may amplify. And so welcome. This is Liberated Space. Today's title is, What is My Dispute with My Boss Soul? A man in dispute with his boss soul. The pain of incarnation. Reconciling why. So today's wisdom service is based on the Kemetic wisdom of our African ancestors, on the Sabiat entitled A Man in Dispute with His Boss Soul. And I will give Sabiat instruction today, which asks you to ask yourself, what is my dispute with my boss soul? And to examine the pain of incarnation that can be experienced in the journey of unfolding consciousness. So I trust you'll find today awesome, inspiring, and empowering. I'll turn in a moment to a previous video and we'll show that. And I made this video about 2 years ago, but it was never posted. And we have quite a collection in our archive of these videos that we're needing to get up and out. So this is in that spirit. Today in this video, there'll be an opportunity to expound more on this most enlightening subject. And so this will be part one. So please do ask questions or put your comments in the chat, in the comments section, and we will get to them. All right, we're going to turn here now. And, as we begin, I just want to show you a couple of PowerPoints that are key. And I hope that you have these texts. I'm going to make it larger so you can see it. And these texts are two of the books of the several books that I have authored. The Macabre Energy Body of Light, the Metaphysics, the Technology of Remaking Ourselves as Beings of Light. And in this first book, Ka'aba, Building a Lighted Temple with the Metaphysical Keys to the Tree of Life, we are understanding linearly and moving linearly in consciousness. But when we move to the other text that I have authored, Macabre, the Kemetic Technology for Remaking Ourselves as Beings of Light, we are then moving spherically or in our spherical consciousness. So it's very important as we now look at Ba, the soul in its journey, the spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness, that you may include these texts in your studies. We have classes here in the Academy that you can find out more information, and just check out how to become a member. And that information is in the comments section. So you see here on this second slide, how we are moving from Ka'aba and making this dimensional shift from linear consciousness into spherical consciousness. This is a very important part of our development. All right, beloved. So here we go in moving to this video, and I'll stop it at different intervals to make comment on it. We are doing a meeting today. We are doing a meeting, so we want to be. We have an opportunity to be more directly interactive, and this will be an opportunity to talk about the services that we have been doing over these last several weeks, which are entitled, the Ba Soul and the Journey of Unfolding Consciousness. And in the last wisdom services, we looked at a key piece of literature, Kemetic Sacred of teaching and instruction, which is a man, a woman in dispute with their Ba. So today, in a synthesis of services that have gone before, we have an opportunity to be interactive. And today's title is My Dispute with My Ba Soul, the Pain of Incarnation. Yes, beloveds, my dispute with my Ba Soul, the pain of incarnation. So we'll have an opportunity to look within and understand what our dispute, our internal dispute with our Ba Soul has been in the pain of incarnation. And ultimately, beloveds, as we look more deeply at the pain of incarnation, it will come full circle where we will have to look at the pleasures of incarnation, the things that motivate, inspire, and make life worth living, joyous, and how we tap into the joys of life despite the travails and the challenges. We have understood cosmically and terrestrially the Ba Soul and the journey of unfolding consciousness in these wisdom services. And we know that we are in this form, and our work is within this particular immersion in matter, in form. And so we just go over again that Ba is an individuation of spirit, and spirit is called Ka by the Commissions. And Ka is called the double because it has its spiritual and it has its physicalizing aspect. So Ka is called double. It's Ka, as we have learned, I'll hold up this image, as we have learned, takes of the substance of itself in spirit to see itself in form. So Ka has its spiritual aspect, and Ka has its physicalizing aspect. Because how does creation create? It has to take up the substance of itself. Can't go to Home Depot. So Ka is called the double because it has its spiritual and its physicalizing aspect. And as spirit takes from the substance of itself to see itself in form. And Ka, spirit, takes of the substance of itself to what? To not just have form, but to have consciousness in form. And this is what we're working on in this incarnation, which is called Av. And I've held this diagram up many times. And we understand that that is called Av, the seat of conscience and consciousness. And each Ba, therefore, represents a level of conscious activity. We are this level of conscious activity, which is called soul by the Commissions. And this conscious activity is Ab becoming fully conscious of Ba, or Haru becoming fully conscious as Osir, which is the one true self. So, beloveds, we continue in our studies today in closely examining Ba, the soul, and its meaning. And we said the title is My Dispute with My Ba. If you think about what have been your own personal internal disputes within your soul, when have you in that pain of incarnation, wailed and beseeched that higher divinity within yourself, which is the creator within you. And so let me just say good morning to everyone. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. All right, great. Great to see everyone. Okay. Hotep. These disputes may arise from internal or external factors. And so let's begin to examine that. What is your dispute with your Ba soul? And as we recall what that dispute may be, it may in fact take us to our earliest disputes, points of earliest life disappointments or traumas, losses, the things that have really shaped your life experience, our life experience. So I want each one of us to be thinking about those earliest internal conversations where, as we know from our tree of life, so this is our subject, the Ba and soul on its journey. I've held this up before, okay? This is the Metu Neter symbol for the Ba soul. And, but I'm holding up the tree of life. And so when we think about these earlier or disputes within, this is the Ka triangle, this aspect within our constitution, which is both human and divine, which is the physical, the emotional, and the mental body, these soul bodies having this discourse with these higher soul bodies. And we've talked about how Haru, which is the Ab within us, the Ab triangle, is betwixt in between the spirit and matter. This, how do we reconcile that we are spirit and matter, that we are, as so many say, God's having this human experience. And so we locate within to see what has been the conversation and what has been the dispute, what has been the debate often. So begin to think about that. So we just want to ask each one of us to think about that discourse within, that dispute, because they do shape our life experiences and really are indications of how the Ba soul is unfolding in this particular incarnation. Things of dispute may be internal to you or to me, and where were your earliest pains felt or registered? So let's begin to look at this. Let's look at the physical level. Let's look at, the Geb, the physical body, where there may be some pain of incarnation. For example, that could be as literal as being born too soon, being born prematurely, and having challenges of having been a premature birth and some of the complications that might cause. One may be born with some physical challenges to a limb, to a heart. My nephew, for example, was born with sickle cell, and he struggled in this incarnation, and he subsequently made his transition before he reached his 30th birthday. So, there we see a soul in its struggle with this particular challenge and trying to find meaning in these challenges. For African and African American diaspora, the pain of incarnation or the dispute with one's Ba may be the color we're born. We maybe have debate or this discourse with our Ba because we're in a body that's too light or too dark, and there's the wish that it would be something other. And of course, we have to look at the impacts of external impacts that have largely contributed to those dysmorphic sensations in the body about our appearance. There can be the wish to be taller or thinner or fatter, not be so thin, or prettier or handsomer, just on a physical level. Beloveds, I just want you to think about some of those earliest pains of incarnation, just being in this body, just what that stirred, because that informs your walk, that informs some of the things that you've had to overcome or maybe still overcoming and wrestling with. Emotionally, coming into a world. So here we are with Osset, the emotional body, coming in and being, let's say, super sensitive. I know I came into this world super sensitive, and I really felt the pain of humanity. And, I felt sorry if I saw people that didn't have enough food, or if I saw a dead bird, or I would have this discourse with my soul as to why did the bird have to die? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why were people mean? So emotionally, we can come in and we can feel not connected enough with the world around, and there can be the discourse with the soul in terms of, well, why am I here feeling so disconnect with everything else? So these are ongoing discourse within the soul. There can be this debate with the soul or dispute with the soul as it relates to the mental level right here, which would be Sebek and Het Haru. And people can come in to this incarnation and feel some pains of incarnation or challenges intellectually, difficulty reading. They might have dyslexia and struggle in school, and they may be born in an environment where there's not enough intellectual stimulation. Like, for example, with John Henry Clark, if you've seen some of his videos, which we had an assignment to see, he went to school with a dirt floor as his classroom, and we knew of his brilliance and to move past such a limiting, intellectually stimulating environment. So then we can look at disputes that may be caused by external factors. For example, who and what is or is not on your landscape when you incarnated. That is a key in terms of your early beginnings, and who is there or who is not there may trigger this dispute with one's soul. To share my own personal example, because I never ask anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do. For me, my mother and father separated when I was about 4 years old. And that's had a long-lasting impact and pain of incarnation upon me. And that's really one of the earliest debates and disputes I can remember having within my soul. Why is my father not here? Why did he leave? Why did he have to leave? Why do others have a father and I don't? And one can recall what are some of these earlier internal disputes. I can remember coming across this caption of a boy with his father, and this boy, he's looking up to his father, and he's saying to his father, "Dad, how did you know how to be such a good dad when you didn't have your own father in your life?" And the father down at the little boy, the boy, and he said, I just knew to give you what I would have wanted. And so clearly there, in that life, there is that father who is called to tap deeper into the archetype, that spiritual archetype of of that father within, because that archetype of that ideal, that perfect mother is within. The ideal of the perfect father is within. The ideal of the perfect relationship is within. And so when we get still and quiet enough, we can tap into that and into that divine template, that because that is our divine inheritance, even if it's not happening now. You know, there are children who are in foster homes, and it's not happening now to be with that divine mother, to be with that divine father. But the divine archetype, the divine inheritance of that is within. And if we can tap into that, then we can even implement the elements of that in this lifetime, even if we don't see it in our outer world, even if we don't see the example in our outer world, because that divine ideation lives within us. But we have to enliven it. And so for this father who was able to tap into that without having had an example personally, nor maybe seeing a lot of example around him, he was able to bring that perfection through, such that his son, from behind his son's eyes, could look at his father and say, Dad, how did you know how to be a good father? How did you know how to be a great father? So we're God's having a human experience, you know. So even though there may be the appearance of absence of something, it is within, if we can but tap into it. Any thoughts or feelings about what's been said so far? Please speak up. This is the time to really share some thoughts and feelings about the Ba soul and the spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness that we are all immersed in.
Dr. Nteri?
Oh, yes, Horace, please speak. Yes.
Yes, I just had a few things that I could say that have always perplexed me in life and had me to sort of question why things were as they are or were in my life. And one of those were, I think, is a big issue and still a big issue is the racism that we had to undergo. I came up in the 50s, so I was very much a part of the whole struggle. You know, I saw racism in my everyday life. I experienced it. So that was a great impact on me. And I was always wondering why this existed in life. And I could see the struggles my parents were going through economically and the pressure that it put on their relationship as far as feeding us and clothing us and sending us to school looking decent. And also the hatred and violence even that we were seeing, you know, like in terms of like Emmett Till, when I was young, he was killed. And, you know, these were big things that happened in the world when I was a young boy. So I always had this struggle, you know, why would God allow these things to happen? Why isn't the world not maybe a perfect place, but a more balanced place to live. So, just having to go to school, and I remember some of my earliest experiences was when we were bused into this really affluent area in elementary school, and the people were outside picketing and calling us the N-word and telling us to go back to Africa where we belonged. And, these things deeply impacted me. And, I can imagine others here have gone through similar situations. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, aside from the physical problems that we have endured as far as skin color, hair texture, and things like that. There's also been this mental struggle that we have to go through, psychological struggle that we're dealing with.
Absolutely, Horace. So well expressed, and so there who among us has not had each and every one of the things you so eloquently outlined and referenced. I mean, these are, each one of us as a going to public school and being treated a certain way and not understanding why that was, not understanding, and I mean, of course, later parents talk with you, with us about these things. We saw things in the media, but even with our so-called advanced understanding of white supremacy and its impact and why a group of people would treat another group of people in these ways, we're still, and you use this word perplexed, and I teach about the language of emotion. Why do we say one feeling word versus another? Perplexed is a very key feeling word, and because feeling words: sad, mad, glad, confused, surprised, embarrassed, all those feeling words. Perplexed, and there are words that hang out, feelings that hang out with perplexed, like but don't quite equal perplexed, and that's confused or baffled or bewildered. If one said they're feeling confused, like you may be sitting doing a math problem and you feel confused, the teacher comes over and says, "Oh, well, this is why you're confused, because you added that column instead of that column," and then you could see the way to move out of confusion. You could see the way to move out of confusion. But perplexity, when one is feeling perplexed, it is when you press the button for the fax machine or the copy machine and the doorbell rings. It doesn't compute. It's that kind of missed signal that makes no sense. You push print on the copy machine and the doorbell rings. It's like and we're still there with this thing called white supremacy, with all the scholarship that's been speaking to these issues, that we're still there. Why? And this is, humanity's pain of incarnation, and this is part of our journey of unfolding consciousness, how as an African people, the African family, out of the African family, which went out and populated the world, there would emerge these seeming racial types. And in this emergence of these seeming racial types, we now, in our closer proximity and communication are all shown up now and arrived and in this mix to figure things out. this mix of things, these and all the seeming racial types have each, they've developed their own ecology based on where they have lived and the part of the earth globe that they have inhabited, and so now it's humanity coming together in this mix of things with this overlay of white supremacy. So it is it is certainly perplexing. Hi, beloveds. I just wanted to come in at this point and just expound a bit. And yes, we have been struggling and beseeching the soul and asking why this white supremacist fragilist paradigm that has been so much of a detriment to us as a people. And we are still at it, and even though we've made some inroads, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop made significant inroads when he talked about the sun people and the ice people and how coming out of these different ecologies, of course, the sun people had populated the world. They're all one and the same, but and that's what we have to come to, that we are one human family and embrace ourselves as one human family. But in these separate developments, there has been a cultivation of certain ways of being and acting toward others that were melanated people that have been destructive. And so the perplexity of the soul in its journey, certainly the perplexity, and we can just we can hardly fathom what Takinte felt or experienced in that ship of enslavement as he was looking out from behind his eyes and seeing this. How might he have been bewailing and beseeching his soul to explain this environment? So let us continue. And not confusing, it is perplexing. We have yet to unpack an explanation or an answer to this dilemma of that humanity finds itself in, and trying to have to return to a unity of consciousness, a unification of consciousness. When we were just Africa, one seeming race, there wasn't this complexity. So excellent observation, Horace. Excellent. Any other thoughts that folks have? Just please unmute yourself. Let's see. Anika says, I know my biggest challenge is the rage. Well, Anika, maybe you want to unmute yourself and talk more about that. Paula says Hotep all, and Keisha says Hotep all. Paula says Elijah Muhammad clarified a lot for me in my younger years. I mean, yes, because he helped to give some explanation as to why this seeming racial type would act in this particular rage or way, and rage is appropriate as well. Now think about their pain of incarnation. I mean, that we're on the receiving end of their pain of incarnation in their obsession and overcompensation. In other words, which by being white supremacists, this is a reaction formation to their trauma, which is to then not just be equal with those you come in contact with, but now you got to be superior because there's been such a disturbance internally about one's being, and here talk about African diaspora people having dispute with their soul over skin color. White supremacy is the epitome of dispute over skin color, or the absence of skin color, and how there's just been this external campaign in reaction to melanated people, just this tremendous campaign. And Akaya, E.M. Hotep, Uncle Jasineb, Hotep, and Paula, for me, sorry, he helped me, move forward as a Black woman. Yes, yes. Accept our Black beauty, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the key here, just to know what our Ba soul has been enduring. And just to look at some other externals, if we take things a bit more home and personal, for some it was having maybe a father who was alcoholic, or a mother, or the pain of being adopted. Folks who have been adopted go through, major soul ache in terms of belonging and identity, and wanting to understand, how could this be? How is it that this has happened to me? Why has this happened to me? And of course, the dispute with the soul is all about why God me? Why is this happening to me? And that bewailing in spirit on that level, and having to reconcile. All the while that one is having this dispute, one still has to operate within this temple, within this device, within this body, this building this temple that we are building, the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body. One has to still operate. Maya Angelou, for example, who had a major trauma as a young girl in terms of being raped, and yet, even though she had this impact and she would have had this turmoil in her soul, she still had to, just because children are, when they're impacted, they still have to learn how to tie their shoes. Remember how difficult it was to, I don't know about you, but it wasn't easy to learn how to tie my shoes. It wasn't easy, but you still have to, even though things happen in the life, you still have to learn how to tie your shoes. You still have to learn your addition table, your subtraction table, your multiplication. And so one of our greatest strengths is the ability to put one foot in front of the other, even though there have been impacts along the way physically, emotionally, mentally. That is one of our biggest coping tools as African people, is the ability to put one foot in front of the other. And what does that mean as a coping tool? Because when one can throw their feet over the bed and sometimes we didn't have beds. We were sleeping on the ground. We were sleeping on straw mats working in the fields. We just got up on our feet and having worked from can't see to can't see, just got up on our feet. And that ability to put one foot in front of the other, it means that you are just utilizing the physical to just walk and to do. And the emotional, the soul body, the Osset, that there might be so much going on emotion that you're not able to catch up with or process. There's maybe so much going on mentally that we're not able to catch up or process, but we still put one foot in front of the other with the hope, and I'll talk about that in a moment, what elements that keep us going is the hope that as we walk, we're going to walk into a day that's brighter and better. And, that's what Harriet had. That's what, Frederick Douglass said. He said, his words are so beautiful in the narrative. He said, I stole my limbs, I stole them out of enslavement. He walked into a day where he could steal himself out of that enslavement that was behind him. And that's the reconciliation that we continue to make within in our Ba soul journey. Tim says, peace and light, family. Honestly, I have no animosity towards my Ba soul. I know that every situation prepares me for the next. Beautifully expressed, Tim. And that's the key, that our soul is ever wise. And how is that? Because our soul, oftentimes when folks, for example, come to counseling, they'll focus on this more terrestrial level, this personal level of what's happened in the life. So they'll talk about the dispute with the soul as it relates to the father being an alcoholic in the home and the domestic disturbance that caused, or the living in poverty and the disadvantages that have happened, or that they were born to a parent who or caregiver who had medical challenges, or maybe had mental illness that impacts the whole family, or wherein you as the child in that circumstance had to be more like the adult and the caregiver, because you're born into a circumstance where parents aren't, or caregivers aren't able to show up. And then what in turn happens for you. And so this is to Tim's point, that we can look at it on that level, that we could say, well, my parent had a mental illness and there was this happening in the family and that happening or that not happening, and needing to be in counseling for, to work through the trauma of that. But in my work with folks, we are always looking at what's happening on the higher soul level. And the question that I ask is, how do you understand your soul and its wisdom incarnating in this family? Why did your soul seek circumstance in this and use this family as a portal through which your mother and father are a portal through which your soul incarnates? Just think about the soul. I mean, just think about this almost like a particle of light, just the spherical particle of light, and you're awaiting circumstance on that inner realm, and other, like it's like being in a train station. You let trains go by, you don't board any particular one. You board that one that your soul, in its all wisdom, knows is the one for the furtherance of the soul in its journey. It's not going to randomly board your train or circumstance to come into. So this is why understanding your family and why you incarnated in your family is so key, because that child who has the parent who has the mental illness or makes them unavailable in some capacity is calling out a capacity in that one who has incarnated in that family, and it's already giving them rehearsal in their life purpose and work in the world. Many folks will recount, some things going on in their own families that then led them to be nurses or caregivers, or to work in particular ways because they had developed those executive skills in their families of origin. Any thoughts about what's been said so far? Let me just check in with. Let's see. I agree with Tim's analogy, like life circumstances may be an answer to why. Let me able to read that. Why humanity struggle. Yes, it is a preparation. These portals through which we incarnate are opportunities for preparation. But beloveds, nevertheless, we bewail. We say, why God did I have to go through this? Why couldn't I have gotten the lesson some other way? And again, tapping into that pain of incarnation. Why couldn't it have come some other way? So we want to understand our dispute and what are we calling on, and what is being called forth in us. So again, witnessing and or experiencing something, a violence or some experience, asking, why did I have to see that? Why did I have to go through that? And I just want to give the words of Maya Angelou. She says, who had some, pretty horrific early experiences in being raped as a child, and among other things, that in terms of the racial issues that she encountered and we all encounter. She says, and we know how just her statue, just what work of transmuting and resolving this dispute were going on in her, that she could be this most eloquent being, this statue of strength and beauty and grace. She says, my mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. So, beloveds, what are your thoughts about our queen here, Maya Angelou? I actually had the pleasure of meeting her in person, and I actually have a picture with her. So her, Rosa Parks, these are just treasures. Yeah, and and then we can see in this dispute, people just being in that survival mode and just sort of without at the same time working on the passion, tapping into the passion, because the passion is within us. And then the compassion is what we can show others outside of us, even those who have wounded us. And then some humor. How do you get some humor in there? You know, we have always had humor. We have always been able to laugh. We have, this is part of who we are. And just think about that, how these impacts shape our lives. You know, losing a loved one. And again, as I said, like being born in poverty or being economically disadvantaged, and and at the same time, how those very same circumstances have spurred or informed the desire to get out of those circumstances. They really spurred that tenacity and steadfastness to overcome those external circumstances. So just think, beloveds, what have been your debates, your disputes, physically, emotionally, mentally, and think about the soul bodies within that have perhaps been, you know, rebelling against circumstance, rebelling against a higher order and higher dictate and command and demand by the boss soul, which we may not be hearing, or we may be ignoring, or maybe in resistance to, like, you know, how could this happen? So it can be helpful to see what you have come through already, just in that surveying, because it's been coming through that there has been this capacity building, seeing what you went through. And interestingly enough, beloveds, how often do you hear people say, when they talk about the things they've gone through, how it made them stronger? How they're able to say, that made me stronger. You know, for example, all right, beloveds, just want to interject here, and there are also a couple of questions that I want to get to in the time we're starting not to have left. And we will have the part 2 of this, and anyone who would like to come in and speak directly, please do consider. Just a couple of notes, and then I want to get to some of the questions. You know, when we look out now and survey, our vantage point is not the same as when we were in the ships of enslavement. And the vantage point of Kunta Kinte. And just think about that, beloveds. Today, we sit, and it's not to say there isn't tremendous racial strife, white supremacy, white supremacist fragilist is still alive and well, but it we know from these teachings it has been dealt that death blow, which it is writhing from, and in that writhing is most dangerous. You know, we see this last vestige before we are finally able to cart away the rubble, dismantle that white supremacist paradigm and cart away the rubble. But beloveds, consider even today as we speak what's happening in Gaza and the bewailing of, you know, the Palestinians and what's happening to them and their land. And some of us now are sitting from the comforts of our homes watching this, and it is horrific. It is soul wrenching to watch and to feel so powerless about. And I mean, certainly there are many charitable, organizations, contributions that people can make, things that people can send. We are people that have been responsive to crises in Haiti with the hurricanes. We have been people who have contributed in the ways that we could, and yet, when we look at the magnitude of the armament and the military, and we're just dwarfed in our capacity to, and this is a baffling and debate within the soul. How is it that we can almost see before our eyes a people who are very near to, with the intentioning, now whether this will be in actuality, we remains to be seen, but the intentioning to exterminate them, to commit this genocide in the nightly news, is just wrenching. And so let me just, so some of the bewailing in our soul can come from where we live at this time, just finding ourselves on this planet in places of unrest. Even in our cities, my son lives in Philadelphia, and he sent me a text in an article on how Black men have the shortest lifespan in living in this location. So sometimes the debate within our soul is because of our zip code, and just think about the children in Flint with the water and all the things that are now happening. But let me just see. I think Tim was first. He said, and please do consider coming on and just having this talk. Tim says, does our karma carry over between incarnations? And we know, beloveds, from our teachings, from our study of the laws of Ma'at and the work that we need to do in our heart, so that it is light as the feather of Ma'at. And what is our outcome if we have not done the work? And yes, these things are visited upon future incarnations. We must do the work to make the heart as light as a feather. And that means living in accord with the 42 laws of Ma'at. And at the same time, one of the things I talk to folks about when they have had extreme and extenuating and traumatic circumstances in growing up is that, and then they want to go on and help others, to just remind them as they seek a seat in these education, so-called educational institutes to be degreed in these areas of helping. What I teach is that you're growing up and in these circumstances in which you have been wounded and then have learned along the way to walk both wounded and be a helper, that your finest internship has been your experience, and to build on that and not forget that. What makes us healers is not what we read in a book or get in these institutions of learning. That's just the small percentage of it, maybe 10% of what it takes to really work with people and to heal yourself and to help others to heal. And so these experiences of growing up under much turmoil, chaos, distress, and trauma, if transmuted into that healing balm, BALM, that I always talk about, that can both be that which helps in the healing of one's own wounds and may soothe and be a salve and a healing balm to others, is the most precious and sacred making, compound, alchemical distribution and offering you can make. And let me just see, in the little time we're starting not to have left, let's see. So yes, Tim, we have to do the work. And Rosa says she also teaches, I'll put her comment here. She also teaches when we just need to put on the mask without compromise to our soul. Absolutely. And you could see it in her walk. We have the walk, and we are majestic beings, and we have learned to walk while wounded and to put that one foot in front of the other and continue in our soul work and service. And Rosalind says, let's see, my Ba is constantly challenging me to move with grace and understanding as I interact with individuals and situations, that is moving me into a higher level of self that is not self-righteous, but more compassionate, gentle, kind, intelligent, thoughtful, and disciplined. Very well expressed. And that's what the Ab and the Ba triangle are infusing, that temple, that device, that instrument through which to do its work. It is informing as well as utilize. It's raising the vibration, because our work is to have this infusion of the Ba and Ab and Ka triangle, such that we are these luminous lighted beings and have knitted ourselves back together, that we have knitted ourselves back together and uniting the spirit and matter within ourselves. And when we unite that spirit and matter within ourselves, then we can see the way of manifesting that heaven on earth by being those lighted beings, being of the highest vibration. And let's see, Tanya says, let's see, Tanya says, okay, Congo, we don't never talk about the Congo. All right, well, we'll have to have you say more about that. We know there's so much that's happened there, and as so many, much of Africa has undergone so much. Okay, Ba wants me to get angry and protect myself, but I have a fear that I'm not understanding why I have this. And someone said earlier in the video about rage, and this part of the transmuting in the heart is what does we do with that anger, that things that one of the speakers was referencing, seeing Emmett Till, discrimination, the racism, how seeing the family struggle, seeing the, people who hate you just because you're trying to go to school and you have this skin color. And so working through that rage, that anger is something that touches us all, that we have to work through, because we see so much outwardly that is enraging. But we must do the work of transmuting it so that it doesn't consume us, or be externalized in ways that just perpetuate more violation of the laws of Ma'at. Jeanette says, thank you for bringing this up. I have been struggling to the process, all the genocide happening. Yes. Heart-wrenching. It is so heart-wrenching. And you know what? One of the things that you just notice so much when you're watching the news and keep trying to keep up with things that are happening, to see the Palestinians in the midst of all that, where can you find any glimmer of hope or beauty or spirit? And how they will, when the bombs come and their buildings are destroyed, how they all gather together and to look for survivors. I mean, I just have to make it plain and just say how much more loving, responsive, and better behaved they are than some city dwellers who will run you over and keep going, or I mean, there's so much that happens in our cities that is barbaric. Barbaric. And so you see these Palestinians digging up loved ones in groups. Just it's so heart-wrenching to see, and especially when you see people who aren't in those circumstances won't help a neighbor, or will be a hit and run driver, or so we are observing much in this journey of unfolding consciousness and needing and wanting to reconcile. And let's see, Tanya says, I read it. All right, so Tanya says, I have a problem with speaking up for myself, but I can speak up for others. All right, well, that needs a little course correction because it's beautiful to advocate for others. Lots of folks are in professions day to day where they're advocating strongly for others. But when it comes to advocating for themselves, and your soul would want and demand your self-care. And so that is important to speak up for others and as well as yourself. Okay, so let's just come here. And we are just about at that time. We're going to finish this and have more expounding next time in part 2. Wonderful questions and comments, and I hope I got everybody. I do hope I got everybody. And Andrea said, love this bar soul example. Thank you. Exactly what is needed. Yes, and I had put that up earlier. Yes, Martha, Hotep, everyone. Great to see everyone. All right, so send me an email if you have some, if spirit is inclining you, and we can see what can happen next. Peace and blessings, everyone. And may all that is good and true and beautiful and great be unfolding journey of your soul and of truth. Uncle Jocelyn. Peace and blessings. See you next week. And don't forget to do your membership so we can continue to come before you. All right. Peace.